This is How About That Podcast, a show dedicated to all things Dallas Cowboys. With both objective and subjective perspectives, How About That Podcast is your place to hear about America's team. Now, here's Joseph Hoyt and Danny Morales.
Joey, did you see that milk carton that was going around the other day? It had a picture of someone that we know. It was one Danny Morales missing. And it was there for a while. Did you ever hear anything about that?
I think I saw a couple of those actually. Right after I shoved another shopping cart into a car, I think I found a milk carton that had Danny's face on it.
It hasn't been that long, has it?
It was one of those things where I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, who cares? And put it back. No, it hasn't been that long, Dan, but it is good to see you. Danny Morales back on the pod. Danny, where were you? You say you're a firefighter, but I'm starting to wonder if you're kind of a CIA agent guy. Like, oh, hey, I got a softball tournament to go to in San Diego. What is that code for?
It's code for softball tournament for the Firefighter Olympics, if you've never heard of such a thing.
Have not. Tell us more.
So I competed in softball, but we got basketball, beer pong, cornhole, surfing, all types of stuff. And so not every department, but a lot of departments from the state of California put together a team, and then they enter a tournament in San Diego and you play for a medal.
Yeah, okay. Tell us more about this. I've never heard of this. This seems pretty epic. Like, how many stations are we talking about here? I mean, if it's Daly City's going all the way down to San Diego, it's got to be pretty vast, right?
It's pretty legit. I would say 40 departments, which isn't that many if you think about how many there are in the state. But it's pretty crazy if you think about it. Like, a department of our size has 5 stations versus you're playing against Las Vegas Fire, who had 100 stations. So pretty big talent gap there. But
did you guys hold your own? Yeah, did you hold your own?
Well, we played Sacramento first, large department. We got smoked. And then we played Vegas, an even bigger department, and then we got smoked. And then we started to figure some things out. We won a couple games. And then we got knocked out one game before the third place game by Fresno. So we did good. But we're a program on the rise. If this was NCAA football and you want to start your dynasty, you'd want to start with us. We're young, we're talented, we're hungry.
Are you guys scoping through recruits' social media though to find out if you're going to recruit them or not? Did you see that that's going to be a function in the new game?
You can text them now.
Yeah,
right?
DM them. Yeah.
I'm still debating whether or not I want to get a PS5 or not, because with a child coming, I don't know how much time I'm going to actually have to play it. But I'm going to have so much FOMO if I don't get it.
I think because the due date is going to be, my opinion, Danny, I say you get it, because I think even a month of playing that will be worth it.
I got offered one for $300. I don't know how to pass that up, right?
Well, I got the new Xbox One, and it's not super gigabyte. It doesn't have a lot of memory, but I have an attachment to it. Anyways, I think with a game, I got it for $260. It was not even, really? Yeah, it's a smaller one. There's no discs to it. So it's all digital, but it was not, you should look into that. It's not expensive.
Did you pre-order the NCAA?
I have not, no.
You don't have to, right? You can just go pick it up. Do they still have GameStops?
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things you just download it too now.
Joey's giving me this look as if I haven't been to a GameStop in 20 years. Everything's just downloaded now.
I get that, but come on, GameStop's still around.
I couldn't tell you where the nearest GameStop was.
Hey, good on you. That's probably not a bad thing. But that was a little bit of an old man. I know that you're becoming a dad very soon, so I think you're just trying to get yourself into the.
No. When I went to trade in my Madden 2010 and they offered me 16 cents for it, they were just done. The store doesn't exist to me anymore. Such a ripoff.
I feel like GameStop is kind of there's one Blockbuster left in the world, and it's in Bend, Oregon. Actually, Danny, did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, we could have gone. But we should have. They should turn into a bar. So like during like, when people come in, they just, hey, you can rent movies, but also have some beer. But get hammered. But it's kind of frozen in time a little bit. It's got all the old stuff. Kind of like, sometimes you find those old Taco Bells that still have that like those bright colors to them and like the old. I feel like every GameStop is frozen in like 2010 or like 2008, like in time. You walk in there and all of a sudden you're transported back to like Modern Warfare 3 feeling and with like zombies and stuff. And that's just what it is now.
It's a dying breed. I don't know how much longer they'll be around because, like I said, you can do everything online now. Yeah. So, I mean, unless you plan on going to GameStop to pick up a hard copy of NCAA football, then I don't know when I'll ever go back.
Well, it's crazy because when I went to pick up my Xbox, I actually first went to a GameStop and they're like, oh, we don't have any. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, just go to Best Buy. And I'm like, bro, this is your niche.
What are you good for?
What are you good for? Come on. But check it out, man. Did you play beer pong? Did you hold it down on the table, or was that someone else's Olympics too?
No, we didn't put a team in there. We just did softball. But I'll tell you what, 3 days of softball and 6 games on your body when you're 30 years old is brutal. It is not like it was when I was in my early 20s.
Are you stretching, Danny? Are you stretching?
Yeah, but it was like 90 degrees. I'm laying out for balls, diving. My body's just beat. I'm not the only one.
How much of a dive do you got these days, Dan? I feel like you're more of like a flop now. It's like a run and then just there's no like projection to it.
Have you ever seen Brandon Crawford play shortstop?
Yes.
Imagine that on the softball field.
Like this year you're talking about, or like, last year, like, yeah. Older Brandon Crawford.
This year, prime Brandon Crawford.
Hitting below 100 for the Cardinals, that's right? That's what you're talking about?
No. Prime time Crawford.
Okay.
With the flow and everything.
Yeah. Well, I
got some lettuce in the back here. Check this out, Joe.
I mean, we're both kind of doing it. Joey's got good flow too, though. Joey's got that like Gen Z middle part thing going, and like it's funny because or whatever the like you got like a little curtain opening on top. That's your hairstyle. Yeah.
I feel like the Gen Z thing is to like leave it all messy at the front and it like kind of goes down like right over your eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like what is it called? Like it's a type of haircut. We had. Good. Yeah, me and Danny never did it because I don't think we had that kind of hair flow. But like when we were like younger, it was like the Bieber cut. Like the that's what everyone was rocking. I couldn't do it because your boy is on artificial medication now to even keep his hairline. So that was not my game, but it was other people's games. But that I don't know if I like this Gen Z like Lechuga thing going on. I don't know.
Lechuga, a little Spanish reference there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but I don't know, Joey. You're kind of like a cross between Gen Z and millennial hair right now. I feel like with that curtain part.
How old are you, Joey?
23.
Oh God, I feel old. Oh my God.
He was saying the other day, Danny, that he felt old.
She graduated high school in what, like 2018?
19.
Oh my God.
Were you born for 9/11? Like, were you alive in September 2001?
I wasn't 6 months old, but I was born.
Wait, what?
I wasn't even 6 months old yet.
Oh, okay.
That was like 5 and change. Sorry, I worded that weirdly.
I thought you were saying you had to be 6 months old to be considered alive.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? Jesus, Joey, don't get political on this podcast, all right?
Let's not go down that road, all right?
Let's not do that, all right? This is a football podcast. And speaking of, let's talk some football. In early July, where we're still, to be honest with you, everyone, there's not much going on. Cowboys training camp is coming up. I think the biggest thing that we had, and this is probably a testament, Danny and Joey, to where we're at in this calendar, was Bootgate. We had Bootgate. And
that news broke to me at work. Someone was like, Dak Prescott's in a walking boot. Did you hear? And they're like, have you talked about it on your podcast? And I was like, are you messing with me? What's going on here? I had no idea. And so obviously I had to go straight to Twitter, which is the most accurate source of news. And lo and behold, he's walking around like a dock or somewhere near water. I don't know. He's in a walking boot.
I don't know about you guys, but my first thought was like, and it took me a little bit because it's a photo from behind, and then it's just a photo in the replies of him in the pool. And a quick catch for everyone. Yes, a photo went viral last week of Dak Prescott in Cabo. Someone posted on Twitter saying, hey, here's Dak in a walking boot. And it was his right foot. That went viral. It took me a second, though, to really I'm like, is that him? Like, or is this some random dude in Cabo, like, just walking around with tats, just random tats on his legs and kind of has a similar build?
It was confirmed to be him, right?
Yes. That was Dak Prescott. But I texted someone right away. I'm like, this is him, right? They're like, 100%. Yeah, that's definitely him. But it was kind of like a weird, again, amidst the no news, kind of a weird, like, oh shoot, like, why is Dak Prescott in a boot? Did something happen? And I think that's what everyone assumes. 4th of July weekend, you had just passed. You're in Cabo. You start to wonder, hey, did something happen? Like, did he slip and fall off a dock or something? But right away, we got pretty confirmed that, hey, it was just a foot sprain. Not much to worry about. And to be honest, I think it's something that he's been kind of dealing with for a little while, and he needed just to kind of be off of it. Because I remember during minicamp, me and Nick Harris, Dallas Cowboys reporter for DallasCowboys.com, we kind of at one point noticed when he was practicing, like, wait, he's in flats, not in cleats. And we're like, I wonder if that's a choice just based on, hey, we're not doing much in minicamp today, or is there something kind of going on with his foot? So part of me wondered, and I had heard maybe like, hey, maybe he was dealing with a little thing. Turns out, it's a minor foot sprain, no cause for alarm. But I think that there was a couple minutes where on July 4th, I think that's when it went viral, where there was some heart palpitations coming from Cowboys fans about the potential health of Dak Prescott.
There were some serious palpitations coming from this guy right here. So I had no idea what was going on. And then when I found out he was in Cabo, I was like, okay, well, maybe he stepped on a sea urchin or something. I don't know.
Because he was also just that QBU or tight end U, like jumping around, throwing the ball, where it was like he looked fine,
Right. So it couldn't have been that serious, but sounds like crisis averted. Everything's good in Jerry's world, so move on. Nothing.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, Dan. It kind of feels like, too, I mean, for a Cowboy fan, I'm just curious from your mindset, when you first see that, and again, when the palpitations are palpitating, it almost felt like, oh, dude, here we go again. Like, are you serious? Like another thing right before training camp?
Yeah, I was like, this already lackluster offseason is going to get the cherry on top with Dak getting hurt right before training camp. I was like, that's the last thing we need. But then, honestly, for a split second, I was like, okay, maybe it's Trey Lance time. Let's see what this guy's got. Maybe this was the grand plan all along, and let's not pay Dak, see if he gets hurt, and then we'll pay Trey. And that reminds me of something. I forgot who it was on NFL Network, but they were like the only person that was on the Cowboys side of this whole contract negotiation thing. I forgot who it was. He was like a former NFL linebacker. Might have been Bart Scott or somebody. But he was a fan of the way Dallas was kind of slow playing this contract with him, because they said maybe they want him to prove it. Maybe they want to see if he gets hurt so they don't kind of put themselves in a tough situation, which was interesting because I feel like everyone is on the other side of it saying that Dallas is completely just blowing this whole contract situation. So it's kind of interesting to see. I don't know if you have a take on that or if you heard something like that.
No, I think one thing you're talking about that kind of is interesting is it kind of goes back to this point of, hey, here's the fact. They don't have a contract done, right? They have no movement on it. We are less than 3 weeks away from training camp from Oxnard before he goes into a potential contract year on an expiring contract without a trade clause and without a tag clause. Why is this happening, right? And when you start asking that question, your mind races. One of the possibilities is, hey, to your point, maybe the Cowboys genuinely don't want to do it yet. Maybe they genuinely want to see something. And the longer this goes, the more those questions start to become kind of a reality, right? Like, I mean, what people don't do this for a reason.
No, and you know just as well as anyone how slow it is right now in terms of just like news, storylines, what's going on. So when these people are showing up to the facility every day, how is their first thing on their to-do list not to do the Prescott or CeeDee Lamb contract? Like, what else is the front office working on besides signing Garyon Conley, Willie Harvey. Like, that's great and all, but there's bigger fish to fry here. So I don't know what's going on. Like, I thought there's no way that come, what is it, July 8th, that Dak or CeeDee Lamb and I have a new contract. And here we are, and neither of them do. So what is going on in that front office? What is the mindset? What are they waiting for? I don't know. As a fan, I have no idea.
And as a fan, that's got to give you some. I think anytime you start opening up more questions, it opens up anxiety, and it opens up this like feeling of what is going on, right? Because let's be honest, the Cowboys front office is not sitting on their thumbs all day, just having beers and like, hey, maybe we'll get to that later. It's not simply procrastination. There has to be some kind of thought. There has to be. I mean, and we can debate whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing. But the longer this goes on, the more it makes you think, Danny, at least in my opinion, there's a reason why the Cowboys don't want to do this. And the other reason could be, obvious thing, by the way, Dak Prescott doesn't have to show up to the negotiation table. And I think he'd be smart. We talked about it in the pod previously when you weren't here, Dan, but if he has a decent year and he hits the free agent market next year, we're talking about a guy that's going to make a lot of money. We're talking, I mean, I
Jared
forgot
Goff money?
Plus 10 million per year, right? Like that's what we're talking about. And guys like him don't hit the free agent market. So why would he come to the negotiation table unless the Cowboys are willing to blow him away, which they probably aren't right now.
It kind of makes you wonder, what is their priority now? Has it shifted to CeeDee Lamb, or is it still Dak Prescott?
That's the one. That's the one I don't get. Is why we're still talking about CeeDee Lamb. To be honest, I mean, like why they haven't signed him yet. That's the one.
Look, because there is literally nothing left for this guy to prove to show you that he deserves a deal. Justin Jefferson got the deal. Who else got paid?
I mean, name them. You know what I mean? A lot of different receivers got paid. A lot of
receivers that have done less than what he's done have gotten paid. He's a bona fide stud. He is a number one receiver in the NFL. He's a consensus top 3 receiver. You're not going to replace that. You can't draft another one of those. They just don't grow on trees. So I don't understand what you're waiting for. Keep the man happy and pay him. It's very frustrating.
And I think that there's a difference between the situations of Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb, right? Brandon Ayuk had a breakout season last year. He's also one star receiver amidst a plethora of talented guys, right? Like, yeah. It's conceivable that the 49ers say, hey, we just paid Christian McCaffrey. We cannot pay you what you want. And maybe there's a disagreement of, let's say, $5 million per year. Maybe the Niners willing to give him 27 per year, right? And he's like, no, I'm not worth anything less than 32. That's a gap that's hard to, find a common ground to. And maybe that's why Brandon Ayuk is literally posting practice film pictures of Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders on his TikTok, which is wild, by the way. But CeeDee Lamb is different. This is a different situation. Like the Cowboys, he is their number one option. He is their go-to guy. He's going to get 180 targets next season. He's a guy that's proven it year after year after year since he's been drafted. He's an ascending talent. He's a first-team All-Pro. He's a guy that if Justin Jefferson's making $35 million per year, you can't pay him less than 32. No. So I don't understand where it's hard for me to fathom with that one where the disagreement is. Or with Dak Prescott, maybe they want to see a little bit before they give him all this money. There's nothing to see with CeeDee Lamb.
And I agree. I think the whole CeeDee Lamb thing is pretty black and white. The numbers are what they are. The comparable receivers are getting paid what they are. What do you debate? Here's your top guys. Here's your top guy. Here's his stats. Here's theirs. They're both the same age for the most part. Start with that or just pay him the same thing. It's really, it's easy for us to sit here and kind of debate all this stuff. We don't know the exact financial details, but again, what is the holdup? There's literally nothing else to see, and he is clearly your entire offense. If you're not going to pay a running back, if you're going to go running back by committee and have hands down the worst backfield in the NFL, at least pay your receivers. Pay somebody.
Pay somebody. And that's the point. Is it's like who have you paid this offseason? You've had a trio of guys that could get paid this offseason, right? Big money, and you haven't signed any of them. So, and they're different situations. One's more complicated than the other. But the other thing too is like I mean, how much more complicated are there? Like, I think you make a priority, you draft, you develop, and then you extend, right? If you have the money, and you have 3 perfect examples of doing that. And it's just weird, Danny. And that's the thing that keeps coming back to. I'm so curious about it from a fan perspective. It's just weird that none of these have progressed to a point of being close. CD could be close. I feel like that there's not a huge disagreement left there. That one probably I feel like gets done either before training camp or during training camp. Not a crazy statement there. But the Dak one you haven't signed. I mean, Micah is we're not even. I feel like we're not even going to talk about that legitimately for another year. So it's just interesting. While other teams are going out and signing their guys, the Cowboys aren't. And I'm just curious from a fan perspective, what that's like.
It just feels like Jerry is turning the Cowboys into the Arlington Renegades. That's what we are at this point. Like, let's just keep bringing these UFL guys in. Let's not pay the guys that we draft. Is he trying to go cheap? I don't know what he's doing here. I really have no clue. All your coaches are on 1-year expiring deals. There's no job security there. You're not paying the guys that you need to lock up long term. Like, what kind of culture? Like, how is the energy and the vibe around that team when it's being led by somebody like that? I couldn't imagine it'd be too positive.
And we texted offline about this, and I'm just curious, like, from your perspective, because I've characterized you, and as the pulse of the Cowboys fan, and I've characterized you a little bit as being a little depressed this offseason, right? Between the all-in stuff,
yes,
not signing many people, between what happened against Green Bay, between the contract situations with Dak, between bringing Mike McCarthy back, but on a 1-year deal. I've characterized you as a little bit depressed. How do you get excited? But you kind of said, hey, once training camp starts, everything will probably pick up a little bit, right? From a fan excitement perspective. Will that be more difficult this year though, considering all those situations?
When I said that, I meant interest, not excitement. And for me, and I'm sure I could speak for a lot of Cowboys fans on this, how did last year end? Pretty horribly. About as bad as you could, right? And so I would think going into the offseason, you're a little pissed off. It's been the same thing for 30 years. And then to cap off your season in such a bad way, you're going to say enough's enough. We're going to change what we're doing. We're actually going to go out. We're going to pay some guys. We're going to bring in some talent. We're going to do something different. And then to not only revert back to form to what they've been doing for 30 years, but to almost do less. It's like, how do you expect a different result in the postseason? God forbid they even make it there this year. If you're not doing anything different, if you're not building a better roster, if you're not surrounding your players with more talent, how do you expect anything different? That game against Green Bay wasn't a fluke. They just got beat down. They got beat by a better team on that day. Was Green Bay a better team last season? I don't think so. But they showed up that day. And what has Jerry done to make that team better? Absolutely nothing. So my optimism going into this year is about as low as it could possibly be.
And not only is the optimism low, I honestly kind of feel like there's almost like, I'm trying to think of the best way to characterize this. It's almost like you're so curious though about like what's going to happen, because I feel like Cowboy fans might already fear they know what's going to happen. I don't know. Like, do you feel like you know what's going to happen this season?
I want to say no, but when I've seen 30 years, essentially 30 years of the same thing, you can almost like, they'll probably win 10 to 12 games. They'll win the East or sneak in the wild card. They could win the first round, which they've done before. And then they play a superior team, a more physical team like the Niners or Green Bay last year. They get boat raced and they're done. That's the same show every year. So what are they doing different to get over that hurdle? Because, hate to break it to you, Jerry Jones, but the Super Bowl is going to run through San Francisco again. And that is one hurdle that they have not been able to get over, because the Niners, like it or not, are a more physical team than the Cowboys, and it shows up every time they play.
And I think, too, there was almost the possibility that they might do something different. I think that's what made this offseason so weird, at least in my opinion, is, and I know Jerry has clarified what he meant by all in, right? Like, oh, no, we're putting all our chips in terms of, like, if this doesn't work, we're out of the game. Right? Not, hey, we're putting all our chips in and we're going to take every asset and resource and we're going to throw it all in there and we're going to try to make something of this, which is kind of the conceivable ideology of what all in means in sports terms, right? That's what people think when they hear it. That clearly was not what happened. And I think that there must have been excitement. When you heard that, Danny, there was excitement about the possibility of that, right? And we're going a little bit off track, but I'm curious now that we're talking about this.
There was, and I think that started with bringing back McCarthy. I think that, again, from my perspective, the way that game in Green Bay went, how it was so bad and left such a sour taste in the fans' mouths that I easily could have seen Jerry have a knee-jerk reaction and just fire him. Boom, gone. McCarthy, you're done. You're going to show up to one of the biggest playoff games we've had in recent years and then completely lay an egg. And then to see them bring him back was, I didn't see it coming. It was questionable at best. How much of that performance can you put on the coaching staff? I would like to say a lot because they just didn't seem very prepared. LaFleur had his guys prepared. But yeah, I was optimistic. And then that optimism slowly waned over the offseason, and it's come to nothing at this point. But I would love to be in the head of the front office and Jerry Jones and see, like, were they as pissed as I was after that game? Like, or do they just not care? Because I was furious. Like, I turned the game off. I was saying every curse word I could. And I'm like, why am I more invested in this team than the front office is? Because if they were really that pissed off, they would have done something about it. And then instead they've signed Willie Harvey. Okay, that's great. Great player, but what's that going to do for us?
I think you hit the nail on the head and I think that's where a lot of Cowboys fans are right now. Heading in as we head.
It's like they don't care.
Yeah.
It's like a business to them, and they're making their money, and I don't really care if we win a Super Bowl. Oh, well, I've done it before. That's just what it seems like. I'm sure that's not the reality because everybody wants to win, but it sure doesn't seem like it with what they're doing.
No, and I think from the lack of movement this offseason, it's objectively conceivable, back to our whole objective thing, it's objectively conceivable that fans would question, why am I putting more into this seemingly than you are, right? Why am I going to invest hours of content, listening and reading this offseason? And why am I going to book tickets for Oxnard to go see in person a team that I know that isn't much different from last year, that just had a very predictable outcome and a very disappointing one? Like, I think that's probably what, and correct me if I'm wrong, from a fan perspective, has made this offseason so tough.
It has. And what's tough is I don't know how you can sell to the fans this year is going to be different. Why? What have they done that would lead anybody to believe this will be different? Nothing. They've gone backwards. So, again, as fans, we're insane and we're going to be invested every year, and we're going to think our team has a chance, even though the realist in me knows this is not a Super Bowl roster. I don't think it is. And it pains me to say that because I have to defend the Cowboys every day here in the Niners country, but it's just not. It's not.
You know, Danny, like when you touch something hot for the first time as like a kid and it burns you, right? Your mind has now registered like, oh, hey, wait, that could hurt me. I shouldn't do that again. Even as appealing as it looks as a kid to like keep doing it, right?
Yes.
I kind of wonder if that's a little bit with the Cowboys right now, is like, hey, I've invested so much and it burns me every time. My mind needs to put in safeguards a little bit to at least be prepared to get burned.
Mm-hmm. That's what people say to me. They say, why are you still a Cowboys fan? Like, you know what's going to happen. You can't expect them to win a Super Bowl. You've never seen them win a Super Bowl. But I just can't explain it.
There's always a chance. Like, and that's the thing I tell people every year with like football, basketball, whatever sport it is. All you want to do at your whole offseason goal by the day that training camp starts or week 1 starts or whatever that first game is, the season opener, you want to have a team that has at least a chance, right? Because you can't control injuries. You can't control people taking dips in terms of their production. You want to have a roster that can have a chance to win it all, right? And that's what I think is weird about this team too, is even though optically they didn't do better and optically on paper they're probably worse than they were last year, this roster still has a shot to make some noise. A chance.
Yeah, but
a chance. Whether it's 1% or 10.
as America's team, we're settling for a chance. Look at the Cowboys teams of the past when they were winning their rings. Those teams didn't have a chance. Those teams knew damn well going into that season they were going to win it all. Like those were loaded teams. And when's the last time that you can remember where Dallas has gone into week 1 and you're like, this is a team that has a very good chance to win the Super Bowl? I can't remember. I don't know if there was ever a Tony Romo team that went in week 1 that I said, this is the team to beat in the NFC.
I know from my perspective, Danny, like who just started covering the team last year, there was a point last season where I was like, okay, like early on, I was like, this team, maybe this is a team that can do it because they had a good defense that was forcing turnovers. They were getting a lot of sacks. Their offense was high powered. Dak Prescott was not turning the ball over. CeeDee Lamb was balling. Even at this point, actually, CeeDee Lamb wasn't really balling out super much, but the defense was balling, right?
Yeah.
And then they went to San Francisco for the measuring stick game. And that's when I started saying, oh, no, like if that's a measuring stick performance and that's how far the gap is, I don't know how big that chance is. But
they haven't been able to bridge that gap because, again, they'll beat up on the Giants and the Commanders every year. Who else? I don't know. Atlanta. Like they'll beat who they're supposed to beat. We see it every year. And let's just say their schedule starts off for the first 6 weeks pretty soft. It's like, wow, this team looks pretty good. And then you got San Francisco, Baltimore, somebody on your schedule where you would like the Cowboys to show up to prove it. And time again, they just never prove it. And unfortunately, San Francisco has been that measuring stick game for like the last, what feels like 20 years. I mean, it's probably been like the last 3 or 4. But they fall short every single time. And they don't just fall short, they fall flat on their face.
Yeah.
And the gap is just, it seems huge. And they've done nothing to bridge that gap. So I don't know why this year is going to be any different.
I also think, too, like, how much more excited would you have been, hypothetically, if they, and I know they had financial limitations, but if they worked some magic, moved things around, pushed off some money for a long time, like if they had gone out and got like a guy like Saquon Barkley, right? Like, in turn, just something with juice, and that's just a random guy. The reason I brought him up is I saw Jeremy Fowler from ESPN was talking about how the Eagles expect Saquon to have a Christian McCaffrey-like impact on them as he did in San Francisco, right? And it kind of got me thinking, like, you know, I feel like if we were talking that, like, oh, hey, the Cowboys' new running back might have a Christian McCaffrey-like impact on them, like, I feel like that'd be more juice. I don't know. That's, and again, financial limitations, but I feel like there would have been more juice if they would have made a significant move. One.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about comparing bringing in Saquon Barkley versus reality of bringing in Zeke. So, yes, that would have been a lot more juice. And I was thinking, I don't know if I saw something online or I was just thinking about it. Do we think Zeke is even a lock to make the team this year?
I mean, lock, anything can happen, right? I think very, 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 I would be shocked if he didn't. Shocked.
If he did not make the team.
If he did not make the team, I'd be shocked. And it would have to be, in my opinion, because here's the thing about this, Danny. I don't know how much he'll play in preseason, right? We don't. What if he's just, all right, get a couple carries and just get your feet under you, and then we want to preserve you? Because I also think Zeke's impact on this team goes beyond what actually he does in the field. Like, I think that they brought him, they thought from a locker room presence last season, there was something missing in that running back room. From a leadership perspective, there was something missing, and they wanted to bring him in to help remedy that. So I don't think any on-field production in preseason would really result in him getting cut, in my opinion.
I don't know. I don't think he's established, yes, because he's done it. But at this point in his career, is he someone that can afford to take snaps off because you need to save his legs? Like, do we need a fresh Zeke down the stretch? That's gonna. Well,
from a preseason perspective, what do you need to see from him?
That he still has something left in the tank. That he can still break tackles. He can still run away from defenders. Because his final year in Dallas and then even in New England, like, I don't know, he didn't really provide much in terms of a threat, at least that I saw. So going into this year, I'd rather have Rico Dowdle as the one. I'd rather keep him fresh in the preseason than Zeke. But
I think that's a different conversation. Like, I'm not talking about Zeke being number RB1 in terms of the most carries this season. If we're talking about him simply making the team, though, I think that it's hard for me to see a reality where he doesn't. Rico Dowdle being a running back one, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and I still hear things, or I've read some things where it's like, well, Dallas could still add someone to that running back room. I don't see anyone out there that they could bring in. So as unfortunate as it is, I think the running back room that they have right now, which is hands down the worst in the league, that's just who we're riding with. And so we'll see, sink or swim, but it'll be an adventure.
And I'm glad we had that conversation because I think it was good to have a temperature check. One, I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you. But two, I think it's good to do a temp check every once in a while on the Cowboy fan perspective. And I think at this point in the offseason, it's just kind of, it's like we know a lot of things, but why are we still in this point? And now you have training camp coming up where let's get really real. It's a very interesting period. So I'm glad we had that temp check. Let's segue a little bit though to maybe someone they could bring in. The Cowboys are the betting favorites, according to Bet Online. And again, this is just a bet thing. This is not sources indicate. This is just a betting odds thing.
Vegas always knows.
Vegas knows. To bring in Michael Thomas, Danny. The receiver. They are the betting favorite at 3-1 odds. One, do you like the bet? Two, what do you think about that?
3-1, those are good odds, I would say.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've been tipped off and they've read something somewhere because Vegas just doesn't pull odds out of their rear end. So that's interesting. I did not know that he was a favorite to come to Dallas. But he's had such a weird career because he was so good for a chunk of time, and then he just completely fell off like the face of the earth in the NFL. And so I'm sure the talent is still there. And if he comes in to be your wide receiver 3, I mean, if you can get him for a cheap deal, why not?
I mean, for a little perspective for you, Danny, Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb last year had a combined 2,400 yards receiving. The other receivers in the Cowboys roster have a career combined receiving yards of 902. Trivia, who has the most out of all those?
Out of the Cowboys receivers, not named the top 2?
Yes.
Is it Tolbert?
No.
Is it a wide receiver?
Yeah, only wide receivers we're talking. And this guy is a sneaky guy to potentially, I think things would have to happen, but to potentially make the team, in my opinion.
Billy Johnson?
It's Tyron Billy Johnson, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's got like 428, I think. Yeah.
Sneaky.
It's weird. You go back to that 2020 season with the Chargers, and he had a little bit of run there. But anyways, so my point being, I like Jalen Tolbert a lot. I like the potential of Jalen Brooks. I like Tyron Billy Johnson's speed, right? I like Kevontae Turpin, and this could be a big year for him to step up as a receiver as well. I like all these guys, right? But objectively, there are questions beyond the top 2 receivers of the Cowboys. So why not bring a guy that at least has done it, even though there's a lot of other concerns?
He is a free agent, correct?
Yes.
Was it injuries that kind of led to his farewell in New Orleans, or like some off the field stuff? What was going on? Because it was a weird path for Michael Thomas.
There was a lot of stuff that felt like, I think injuries definitely played some sort of a part, but he was going at Derek Carr and Dennis Allen, and he just did not like the people in charge of running the Saints. And I think that was one of the biggest parts of it, just because he was publicizing it. And he was injured for a lot of last year, and he was fine when he played. But I mean, that whole offense was weird. Derek Carr was hurt the whole year and everything like that. But yeah, it was definitely a messy ending to that marriage.
I mean, we're also talking about a former offensive player of the year type of guy, a guy who had 140 catches, a 6'5" guy that has historically been good at contested catches.
6'5"?
Yeah.
6'3".
He does not look 6'5".
Oh, is he 6'? He's 6'3"?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? Am I tripping?
I am sure.
I think I might be tripping. I might.
To Joey's point about a receiver being vocal about not liking how a team is run, I would say there's definitely concerns about the way the Cowboys are run. So do you want a receiver to bring that baggage to be your wide receiver 3? Is that worth it? That he's going to just air your dirty laundry on Twitter and whatever?
Yeah, but then you cut him. There's a reason he's still a free agent. There's a reason he's not highly. I mean, he's not highly sought out. He's not going to draw a super large amount of money. That's you bring you. My point being is, I think it's interesting and maybe worth just taking a look at seeing him in person for a guy that used to have that potential. Because what's the worst thing that happens? He doesn't make the team.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
I guess it's worth the investment. See what he's still got, because if you can get 75% of the receiver he used to be, and that's your wide receiver 3, now that opens up the offense even more. So, and he's got an actual quarterback, because Derek Carr was in. So,
Derek Carr is, and this is not. I'm not trying to. This is not an anti-Derek Carr podcast or anything, but like, he's had such an interesting career, man. Like, he's a guy that's just kind of been like, meh, for a long time. I mean, he had 1 or 2 seasons where like, oh shoot, pretty good. But then I was like, man, the Saints are giving him a lot of money. I don't know about that. And like, just meh. I don't know. He's very meh.
It just goes to show how few quarterback options there were. I mean, if the Saints were willing to pay him that much money, there really was nobody else. You're going to pay Jameis Winston. And Derek Carr is always that guy where if you wait to take a quarterback in fantasy, and the next thing you know, it's like the 12th round, and you're like, shit, I have no quarterback. Well, I guess I'll take Derek Carr. Okay. He's always that guy.
Dude, that happened last year in a fantasy league with me where I didn't know it was 2 QBs. I don't know. Was this the one our fantasy league, Danny?
It was.
Yeah, and I took Jordan Love super late.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took Jordan Love. I was like, I might as well just go for someone with potential. And then all the way to the top. So
in our league, the quarterbacks are completely gone by the second round.
Yeah.
Gone.
That's a 2 quarterback.
Because you also juice up the QB stats a little bit too for points.
QBs and defenses. You can have a defense score like 50.
Yeah.
And I bump up the kicker. If the kicker hits one from 50 plus, it's like 10 points.
Oh, I hate that. I hate kickers in fantasy football. We can
kickers are people too.
No, not in fantasy football. They're not. They deserve less. I did want to add something really quick. I did the math of 75% of Michael Thomas's stats from that year. 75% of his stats would be 111 catches and 1,290 yards. So that wouldn't be too bad to have as your third wide receiver option.
Do the math on 25% of that, and tell me, because I think that would be good.
That might give you what Brandon Cooks did last year.
But you know what's crazy? Like, I don't think it's a bad idea if we're talking 5th receiver here to have a guy that can be a role player in terms of, hey, you lost Michael Gallup, who before injuries and before last season was your contested catch guy, right? If you brought in Michael Thomas to be a guy that literally just goes up and makes one big catch in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers, like, it's worth it. Remember when the Giants signed Barry Zito? And at the time, I think it was like 7 years, $126 million or something. And he was supposed to be the savior of the franchise, from a pitching standpoint. Obviously wasn't good, but he came on in Game 6, I think, against the St. Louis Cardinals, and was the reason that they ended up beating the Cardinals in the NLCS, basically. And that made the entire contract worth it as they ended up winning a World Series.
I don't know if that justified the entire.
Oh, yes, it does. If you win a World Series with a guy and he's a big reason why, pay him whatever it is.
$150 million for one big start, huh?
You're one to talk to. Objectively, by the way, everyone. I grew up in San Francisco as a Giants fan. Danny's a Dodger fan. Danny, you're one to talk about paying guys a lot of money for not winning.
What are you talking about?
All the Dodgers do is pay guys a bunch of money to not win. That's their whole MO.
No, most of that team is drafted and developed. That's what people don't realize.
Oh, yeah. Mookie Betts totally drafted and developed. Yeah. Shohei Ohtani. That was a great draft pick. Yeah.
Well, they're not paying Shohei peanuts right now.
That's true. That's true.
We'll put that on credit. We'll pay him in 10 years.
Yeah, that's fair. Joe, do you have a 25% for Michael Thomas?
37 catches for 430 yards.
Shoot, 10%, 140 yards and like one touchdown. That's probably fine.
Yeah, if the money's right.
It would just matter what you paid him. I mean, if you can get him for next to nothing, I think it's very realistic to expect 35% of his best year.
Yeah, incentive-laden deal, and if it doesn't make the team, it doesn't matter. Anyways, That was that's some news, kind of, not really. That's what qualifies as a talking point in on July 8th. A couple other things that qualify as talking points. Danny, you weren't around for this, but I want to get your quick take on it. The fed up storyline, I was fed up with it just because of how it became a thing. I did a whole rant about it. I thought it was overblown. I'm just curious what you thought of the Mike McCarthy's fed up with Jerry Jones potentially storyline.
It's one of those juicy headlines that people can kind of latch onto. It's like, ooh, a coach is fed up with Jerry Jones. And the fact that it's the Cowboys makes it even juicier because people love to talk about the Cowboys. So I'm fed up, but who knows to what extent McCarthy is. Like, they can always spice these stories up. They can make them juicier. The relationship could be just fine. We don't really know because we're not inside the building. But it makes sense that he's fed up because, like I said, I'm fed up. So if I'm fed up and he's the coach with no long-term contract in sight, I'm sure he's fed up too. Because what has Jerry done to build a supporting cast around him? Nothing. He brought in Mike Zimmer to be the new defensive coordinator, but that's about it. So I'd be pretty fed up too.
He's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
He doesn't have job security.
He's got zero job security. And like I said, there's been nothing done to that roster to make anyone think that they're better than they were last year.
Also, so, Jerry Jones is not a normal owner to deal with, right? Like that's what made me laugh about this storyline. Like, and that's what Mike McCarthy knew going into it. You know, after games, Danny, at home games, Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones speak at the same time, one on the opposite side of, like, one in the press conference room and then one about 150 paces down a hallway speaking outside. Who do you think has more reporters at that moment?
Probably Jerry.
Every time.
But how many teams do that where their owner, GM extraordinaire get interviewed after a game?
None.
Exactly, because
not every week.
That's not their role. That's not their job. Like, Jerry, stay up in the box, keep your distance, sign the checks, but that's about it. This guy's got way too much of a say and influence on the actual roster and the coaching. It's not good. You have to know your role. Let your coach, let your GM be his GM, and you just own from a distance. It's so frustrating to see how involved this man is. And I'm sorry, but his football incompetence just shows year after year with some of the comments he makes, and even Stevens sometimes. But I just wish they would bring in an outside GM. The Jones family would kind of just wipe their hand clean. We'll write the checks and turn the keys over to somebody else, because they're driving this thing into the ground.
I mean, that's what Will McClay is, but but he also, the thing we don't know ultimately is how that power is actually distributed, right? So, to your
how much say does Will McClay have? Can he overstep Jerry or Steven?
Yeah,
I would think not. Who knows? I don't know.
Hey, the Cowboys didn't. I think in a perfect world, maybe Jerry would have liked Jonathan Brooks in round 1. I'm just kidding. So maybe it's a testament to Will McClay. Anyways, the fed up storyline was unsurprising and, in my opinion, pretty dumb. Yeah. Anyways, moving on to something else I want to talk to you about, Danny. And I found this very difficult. In Steven Ruiz from The Ringer, they did a similar exercise, and I thought he said it best. He said that there were 14 top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. And I thought that was really, really well said, because I sat down and did a top 10 ranking today on July 8th for LoneStarLive.com. Please check out our website content. We do a lot of good stuff over there. Also, check out the subtext. That's the end of this advertisement. Anyways, I sat down and did it today, Danny, and it's tough. My goal was basically, where do I put Dak Prescott in this top 10? And it's not easy. I'm going to give you my ranking really quick, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. But this was my ranking that I came up with today. Mahomes is unanimous number 1. No shock there. Number 2 is where it starts getting interesting. I think you could put Josh Allen here. I went with Lamar Jackson, kind of deferring to the 2-time MVP. And he's a guy that, if you kind of look at what he did last year, I felt like he took a little bit of a step as a passer, which was I thought was important for him to do. Hence why he won the MVP. So I put him at 2. Then I had Josh Allen, who obviously his interceptions were up but that's a guy who makes a lot of big time plays. And if you kind of look why his interceptions were up, you can make a significant argument that this was a guy trying to make plays with a receiving core that wasn't doing as well, and a supporting cast that wasn't kind of hitting as hard as they were, except against the Cowboys when James Cook ran for 500 yards. Yeah. Then I had Dak, and I have a reason for it. Then I went Joe Burrow, then Justin Herbert, then Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, Matthew Stafford, and Jordan Love. And I think the hard thing about ranking these top 10 QBs, I think that the top 3 are set, in my opinion. And you can go 2-3 either way, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, but Mahomes won. After that, to Steven Ruiz's point, from 4 to 12, I think you have discussion. 4 to 13 maybe, because some guys not in that top 10, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts was not in there. Trevor Lawrence just signed a big deal. Tua Tagovailoa was one of the best advanced analytic passers in the entire league last year. He was not on my list. Kirk Cousins, one of the, you know what I mean? Another guy. So these are guys that didn't even make the top 10. So I'm curious what you think about that ranking, where you would put Dak Prescott and just kind of where he stands amidst this QB ranking heading into 2024.
It's tough because there's regular season Dak and then there's postseason Dak. So it's so hard to not let the postseason performance overshadow the whole body of work. But with that being said, we have the exact same top 3. I got Mahomes, I got Lamar, and I got Josh Allen. And I don't think, for the most part, no one's really going to argue that those are your top 3 guys. Then, like you said, you say something?
No, I think that there are some guys that could potentially enter that tier after the season.
Sure.
But right now, no. That is your top 3.
No, and then I think it gets a little. You can debate a lot of these next few, and I forgot the exact order you did, but I kind of have a cluster here of guys where it's 4 through 8, and so you got Joe Burrow, you got Justin Herbert, you got Dak Prescott, and you got Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts didn't make your top 10, which I think is insane, but I think with what he's done, you got to put him in there somewhere. So starting from 4, I'd probably put Joe Burrow at number 4. When healthy, the guy's clutch. He just has that clutch gene that, unfortunately, I think Dak is lacking. And so I put Burrow 4. Then I'd put Dak 5. Dak comes in at number 5 for me. I don't think you can argue that. And then very close to behind him, I'd put Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert just if you were to say someone build me the perfect quarterback, it's Justin Herbert. He's your guy. He's got all the intangibles and he's got the measurables. And so
he's smart as hell. He went to Oregon. Do you know how smart Oregon guys are?
Yeah. And he's got some good flow too. So we appreciate some good lettuce. Then you got him. And then I'd put Jalen Hurts. And so what does that put me at? 8?
That's 7.
7. And then so to round out my top 10, there's also a few names. Brock Purdy's not in my top 10. I know he was in yours. And so I think I'd put at 7. I'd probably go Jared Goff.
8. Oh, see, I didn't even mention Jared. But
I'd go Jared Goff next, just for what he's done. He was playing indoors. Yeah, he had a lot of weapons around him. It was a great system. But he got it done in L.A., and now he's getting it done in Detroit, and finally got paid. So I put him there. Behind him, probably Jordan Love. I was not a Jordan Love believer. I thought that he'd sit behind Rodgers and rot, and then when it was his time, well, I was wrong, and he proved to the Cowboys fans specifically that he is the man. He is legit.
18 touchdowns to 1 interception from week 10 on in the regular season,
which you can't argue. And then the last one's tough. There's a couple names because, like you said, you could put 15 people in the top 10.
Yeah.
I like Stafford, but at this point in his career, is he still a top 10 guy? I don't think so. Purdy, you brought him in there. He's good.
You haven't mentioned one guy in Houston yet. No,
I think he's a product of the system.
Whoa!
I'll say it. But
CJ Stroud is a product of the system?
No. Brock Purdy.
No, I said you haven't mentioned a guy in Houston yet.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
All right.
And so, while I do think the sophomore slump,
I was gonna freak out.
I do think the sophomore slump is coming because he is being anointed the next greatest thing at quarterback. I'll put CJ Stroud at number 10. I will say tamper expectations because I think people are jumping the gun way too quick on this guy. But when you throw Stephon Diggs in that offense now, so now he's got Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz. I'm going to stop there. No, I'm gonna
and
stop
Joe
right
Mixon at running back.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Noah Brown too.
And Noah Brown.
I put him at 10. So to answer your question as to where Dak Prescott falls, he falls right in the middle. For me, he's number 5. And I think that's the perfect spot for him. Is he elite? Can be, but I wouldn't say he's not a top 4 guy. But I think he's a lot better than your Staffords, your Goffs, your CJ Strouds. He's just more consistent than those guys. And so I put him right in the middle, number 5.
Yeah, I think, as we mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility with top 10s right now. I think there's top 15 guys that can be in the top 10 in anyone's argument, right? I think that with Dak, it is really hard to place him anywhere below 8, in my opinion. I think once you start getting past, if you're trying to get him 9, 10, 11, based on what he did last season from an advanced analytics standpoint, from what he did just in terms of dropping his interception numbers down while also making big plays. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb was a big part of that. I think it's hard to place him anywhere below 8. So 4 to 8, 5 to 8 for you, I think is good. I think that the reason why I put him at 4, I kept actually putting other guys ahead of him. So I put Joe Burrow ahead of him first. Yeah. And I was like, well, you look at the numbers, Joe's been really good and he's been really clutch, to your point, but he's also been hurt a lot. Like, I mean, he's he missed 7 games last season again, and it's kind of like, I think with him and Herbert, I kind of pair together a little bit because, they're so talented and they're so good. But for Burrow, I need to see him stay healthy. For Herbert, I need to see him lead a team to actual victories. And I know there was a lot going on with the Chargers over the last few years, but at the end of the day, you kind of got to start just doing it. I talked with some Oregon buddies about this all the time, where it's like, we love Justin Herbert, right, as a player. We think that, to your point, made in a lab. But at a certain point, the excuses kind of have to just stop, right, if you're that good of a quarterback. And the ironic thing about that argument is, if you look at what the Chargers have this season, they added Jim Harbaugh as a head coach, right?
What else?
What happened at wide receiver, though?
They lost everyone.
They got Ladd McConkey is going to be their number 1 receiver this year.
Damn right he is.
I think didn't they get Brandon Rice too?
Yeah, they got Brandon Rice. It's gonna be Quentin Johnston. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon Rice and Ladd McConkey. Is there a better trio at receiving corps? I don't know.
Maybe the one up in New England, huh, Joey? Maybe there's a better trio up there.
Yeah, with Javon Baker, getting people up out of the wheelchairs.
Oh my God, I forgot about that quote.
I don't think they have Juju. I don't even know what their wide receiver core is like.
They still have Kendrick Bourne, right?
They re-signed Kendrick Bourne. Yeah. One name that I think could sneak. I think he's forgotten, like especially in the fantasy world, and I just think in general he's kind of a forgotten name. And he was a very talented quarterback. He still is. He's pretty young. Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to have forgotten about Kyler Murray. And so I think this is a bounce back year for Kyler Murray. That's just my opinion. I think if we're having the same conversation next year, I could see him being mentioned over Jordan Love, Jared Goff, and CJ Stroud.
I also think another guy, and I alluded to him, was Tua. Like, I think we still have this feeling with Tua, like, it's Tua, blah, blah, blah. And I think that if he did it again, and he's got a great supporting staff, right? But if he did the same thing he did last season and maybe even more, at a certain point, you got to give the guy his flowers, right? And I think he's another guy that could break through. Stafford's the interesting one. I had him in the top 10. There was the injury concerns about his career in terms of his shoulder, I believe, or maybe his elbow, one of those things. Mm-hmm. Either way, he didn't finish the whole season last year, dealt with some injuries. His play wasn't as good, even though the film kind of definitely different than what the numbers would tell you. But this is a guy that's 36 years old, excuse me. Probably, how much longer does he have? That's the guy I find interesting. Rodgers, I'm not willing to put in the top 10 anymore until he can prove that he plays more than one series. And it's just hard for me to put a guy that old coming off an injury like that into a top 10.
No, I'm done with him. And I think another guy who could be in that top 10 conversation next year is AR-15, Anthony Richardson. I'm an Anthony Richardson fan, and this is a hot take, but I think before he got hurt, he was better, in my opinion, than CJ Stroud.
Whoa!
Just my opinion. Just my opinion.
Okay, well, he's got to learn how to slide.
When you're that big, you don't got to slide when you're that big.
Oh, no, you're right. Then you just end up having season-ending injuries, and you're out for the year. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's a great way to have a sustainable quarterback career.
Danny, how are you going to say he doesn't have to learn how to slide when he was made of freaking paper and glass last year?
Danny, you gotta bring him down to San Diego, all right? And you gotta have him play in the firefighter softball tournament, huh? And that's how you can teach him how to slide, all right? Really get down and pop up after that, and celebrate. Okay, we want to celebrate. We don't want to get off the field with some pain now.
Don't say I didn't tell you so, but he'll be better than CJ Stroud this year. Just watch. The Colts are gonna do something special this year. I got a feeling.
I think there's a better chance. Sorry, Joe. I think there's a better
no. Go ahead.
Kalen Carson being better than Cooper DeJean or Cooper DeJean than there is Anthony Richardson being better than CJ Stroud.
Well, that's a given. Yeah, obviously he's gonna be better. We all know that.
Walking seatbelt, baby. which is an incredible nickname. I find that
I love it. I love it.
Joey, I'll let you as the Third Eye Raven figure this out. We need to have some type of CJ Stroud bet. Clearly, there's a difference between how I look at him and how Danny looks at him. So I don't know. Maybe it's if he throws for 4,500 yards this season, like I win. I don't know. What would be a good bet for CJ Stroud?
4,500 feels reasonable because he had, I think, just over 4,100 this past season. It was 4,123 and 5. I want to say was his stat line.
Yeah.
Say what if you went down to 4,400, but he had to get over 30 touchdowns? Or if you felt really confident in 4,530 touchdowns.
Danny, what do you think?
Or just keep it simple and say that Richardson leads the Colts to the AFC South title. You think that CJ Stroud wins the AFC South.
And then if not, and then if for some reason Trevor Lawrence and the Jags win it, then
we're both wrong.
I feel like that's riskier for you, Danny. Texans defense looks pretty good this year. Not saying the Colts have a necessarily bad defense, but Texans look really good.
Okay. We'll see. I don't know what the Vegas betting odds are to win the South, but
I'll tell you.
I would take the Colts. I would take the Colts.
Texans are plus 105. Colts are plus 330.
Oh, that's a good bet.
Is Morales going to take that bet?
Jaguars are plus 270.
No way.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Trevor Lawrence is a rich
crazy.
man.
I don't think that's that crazy. How about the Titans?
Plus 800.
Ooh. Hey,
I don't know.
Hey, that Brian Callahan now. Watch out now.
I don't know.
Danny,
give Will Levis some good options to throw to.
Yeah, but it's still Will Levis. Anyways, Danny, before we go, I wanted to challenge you to something and put you on the spot.
Sure.
Okay. Since you've been gone, Kelly Clarkson, since you've been gone, there's a new viral meme that has developed, a new viral thing. Have you been paying attention to the Hawk Tua meme?
Sure have.
Okay, so you know about Hawk Tua, right?
I do. Hawk Tua 24.
So it got me thinking of the Hawk Tua award, right? The guy you never saw coming that had 15 minutes of fame and was gone, right? And I was wondering, in your knowledge, and this is a tough question, Dallas Cowboys history as being a fan, who would you give the Hawk Tua award to? The person that kind of like, whoa, look at this person. They could be the next big thing. They balled out for a little bit, and then they kind of disappeared.
Whoa. I'd have to think about that one. The Hawk Tua award.
Yeah.
You see that they're coming out with a documentary about her?
I did.
See, that's
more than 15 minutes.
That's the wrong way. Like if she's, I fully support getting the bag, right? But a documentary is not doing it. If I were her, I'd just do a bunch of commercials, a bunch of advertisements, sell Hawk Tua 2024 t-shirts, like the old, election campaign things, like just sell a bunch of merch and just do a lot of appearances. And that's how you get that bag and you strike when the iron's hot. Not a documentary. Who watches documentaries these days?
Yeah. The Hawk Tua, I mean, I got a couple that come to mind. I don't know if they really fit the description. One of the first ones, I mean, the first name that came to my head when you said that was someone that just hit the ground running, boom, and then they were gone just as fast as they were a thing, was Miles Austin.
Was he gone, though? I thought he had a little sustainability. Am I tripping?
I mean, I don't know if it was really that sustainable. And then the other name that I'm thinking of was never really as big as the Hawk Tua got. I thought he would be, and then he kind of just fizzled out, was Terrence Williams.
Yeah.
The receiver from Baylor, who I thought was going to be legit. He made that sideline catch in the playoffs, and then gone. So I guess Miles Austin's my Hawk Tua.
Miles Austin had 2,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a Hawk Tua. You know what name came to my mind? And I put you on the spot, so let's stop. But you know what name came to my mind when I thought of this? Do you remember Chris Borland?
Chris, the linebacker?
The linebacker?
Yes.
Yeah, fourth. I think he was like a 5th-round pick, so it's like, just a backup linebacker. Comes in, I think he was a Pro Bowler in his first season. Like, he was a baller, right? And then he was literally gone after his rookie season because, concussions, and he didn't want to pose any further risk. But he was there for one season, balled out, Hawk Tua that thing, and was gone.
Can I give you mine for the Patriots?
Yeah.
Really quick. I don't know if you guys remember Jonas Gray. He had one game where he ran for running back. He had a game against the Colts where he ran for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then the next week he was late for a meeting, and that was basically the end of his career with Belichick.
I wish I would have thought about this a little longer. I could have came up with some Hawk Tuas for you.
Here, hold on. Let's go really quick. Let's go to a wow. And Jonas Gray's in the headline of this one. Okay. This is the NFL's best one-hit wonders from Sporting News. Vinny Iyer. Thank you for the read. Okay. So the first one they have is Matt Flynn, quarterback from the Packers.
Matt Flynn.
He had that really good week 17 game. I feel like I remember.
And then he got traded to Seattle, right?
No, he signed free agent, signed for a huge deal. And then it was Matt Flynn, Tavares Jackson, and
Russell Wilson, rookie quarterback, came in and beat them all out. The rest is history. Yeah. Wow. Clint Longley, a quarterback for the Cowboys, November 28th, 1974. When Roger Staubach was injured and unable to play, Longley, whom the Bengals had taken first overall in the supplemental draft, was forced into action. He went 11 for 20, 203 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, rallying the Cowboys from a 16-3 fourth quarter deficit. And the Cowboys won 24-23 thanks to a Hail Mary thrown to Drew Pearson. Oh! That's the most iconic Thanksgiving football play in Cowboys history.
Wow.
Feel like I should have known that.
All right, well,
I wrote about it during Thanksgiving. That's why I remember that.
Wow. I had never even, wow. I didn't know his name. So that's on us. Jonas Gray. Jerome Harrison, running back for the Browns.
Oh, yeah. Number 44?
35.
35, huh?
Timmy Smith, running back for Washington in the Super Bowl. I remember that. Reggie Harrison, running back for the Steelers against the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Brock Forsey, a running back for the Bears. A Boise State guy. Wow. Jeff Janis, for the Packers against the Cardinals in the NFC Divisional. I remember that.
Janis.
He had the Hail Mary catch, right?
Yep.
Chris Matthews, a wide receiver for the Seahawks against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I don't remember him.
Oh, I remember that. He was insane. Oh, yeah. He had that, he had a couple games in that playoff run.
He was on the CFL. Yeah.
He was that 6'4" guy. He was absurdly good for no reason.
Dude, good for him.
These are making my Miles Austin take look real bad.
It's okay. I put you on the spot. A guy named Nate Poole, a guy named Percy Howard for the Cowboys against the Steelers in the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, 34-yard touchdown. Remember that? Oh, Jesse Hawley.
Jesse Hawley from the Cowboys show. What was the name of that show?
Wasn't it Making the Team?
Making the Team, and then Romo.
No. It was 4th and long.
I don't know. I remember Tony Romo hit him deep against the Niners at Candlestick in the playoffs. Was it playoffs or regular season?
No, it was regular season. Young Joseph Hoyt was at that game.
Wow. Romo just threw a bomb under duress. Boom. Well, perfect.
Remember too, Danny? He had the punctured lung or punctured rib that game in like the third quarter. Like got treated up and then came back and still threw that. Oh.
Punctured lung. You can't puncture your rib.
Yeah, the rib was the one doing the puncturing. You're right. All right, Coney Ealy in the Super Bowl against the Broncos for the Panthers. Wow.
Coney Ealy. Name that college, Joe.
I want to say Auburn.
Nope, went to Missouri.
Damn, I was close. Anyways, those are the Hawk 2 awards. Maybe we'll have a Hawk 2 award this season. We'll monitor that. Danny, Joey, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I got one. You guys ever heard of suction cup therapy by chance?
Yeah, it's what yeah, of course. Yeah, it's like when guys have the big like circular bruises on their whole body.
Yeah. You ever tried it?
I haven't, no.
There's a Chinese herbal medicine place right next to my house. I was thinking about trying it out. My back was a little sore from the Olympics. So I was gonna give it a shot.
From the Olympics.
I don't know why hearing from the Olympics was the funniest thing I think you've ever said. From the Olympics.
If it looks like I got attacked by an octopus next episode, it's from the Chinese medicine shop.
Why would you point to your neck though, Danny?
Because sometimes they put them all the way up. I don't know.
Not in your neck.
I think they do. I don't know.
They do.
I have no idea.
Not this high in like hickey territory, Danny. You're a married man.
He's just getting a bunch of hickeys that he's planning for. So that's
Danny. You literally have a crib behind you, for Christ's sake.
I do. Actually, I got a doubleheader tonight, so I gotta rest up.
Oh, okay. The Olympics never stop, huh?
No. This is my local San Bruno league, so got to stay sharp for next year. Olympics 2025.
Are you pitching?
Me? No, I don't pitch.
What do you play?
For the Olympics, I played shortstop. For tonight, probably outfield.
One quick take on softball. I think playing infield is not fun. Playing outfield though is very fun,
especially on a dirt infield.
Yeah, no. I'd rather go diving and stuff in the grass.
Nah, I like to dive, get dirty, get scraped up.
We talked about it. Let's circle back to the beginning of the pod, and that's how we'll end it. Danny, you don't dive, you flop. All right, that's another episode of How About That Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to How About That Podcast.